Reaching the top of the WWE mountain should be a moment to celebrate, and for most wrestlers who get into the business, it is one of the ultimate goals. The boyhood dream comes true is a famous call from Big Vinnie Mac when HBK finally won the big one, and for many wrestlers who step between the ropes, it truly is. The WWE Heavyweight, World Heavyweight, when it was active, and the WWE Universal Championship have been treated as the pinnacle of sports entertainment ever since their inception, and the journey for most men to get to them can be absolutely thrilling. Think back to Daniel Bryan, fighting back against an oppressive regime only to stand tall at WrestleMania 30 with both belts in the air as the entire crowd pointed to the heavens in unison. It birthed not only a main event superstar, but an entire movement, one which rose up against the preordained superstars and booed them mercilessly. Poor Roman Reigns. Kofi Mania followed a similar trajectory when the WWE Universe realised that one of their favourite wrestlers would never get the top spot, and they basically manifested it into existence, and it brought us one of the greatest WrestleMania moments of the last decade. Tell me you didn't have a tear in your eye when the New Day embraced. Don't you lie to me. The hardest part about becoming the top dog is what comes afterwards. We've seen many times where a wrestler finally wins the big one and the subsequent reign really underwhelms. The fans lose interest, the usual WWE booking tropes kick in that make the champ look weaker than when he was the challenger, and the cycle continues. These title reigns really shouldn't have underwhelmed considering the superstars involved. I mean, sometimes, yes, a title reign is always going to be crap, and we know that going in. Don't we, Jinder? But such was the excitement and groundswell of support behind these champions as they ascended to the throne, it seemed impossible for them to falter. But they did. I'm Rob Van Rob from Fast Count, and these are the 10 most disappointing WWE title reigns. And if you don't want to be a disappointing title reign, make sure you hit that subscribe button and stick around for more wrestling content. Number 10, Rey Mysterio, World Heavyweight Champion 2006. Although nowadays it seems like Rey Mysterio is more than happy tagging and mentoring his massive son, it's easy to forget just what a phenomenal career the man has had. Despite being on the small side, Mysterio elevated himself to become a major player in the land of the giants, making up for his stature with how dynamic and innovative he is in the ring. Whilst a firm favourite in WCW, who paraded their cruiserweight division with the same amount of pride as Rey has when he parades his massive son, there was a healthy dose of skepticism when he joined the WWE, who always ring-fenced smaller wrestlers lower down the card. Mysterio broke through that ceiling and became a major player from the get-go when he arrived in the summer of 2002, but it wasn't until the beginning of 2006 that Mysterio finally won the big one. After the heartbreaking and ill-timed death of Eddie Guerrero, the WWE pushed Mysterio in Latino Heat's honour, tugging on the heartstrings of all who knew what a long-standing friendship the two had. Winning the Royal Rumble from the number 2 spot, Mysterio headed to WrestleMania never really feeling like he was the main man. Defeating both a heinous Randy Orton and the then World Heavyweight Champion Kurt Angle in a very quick triple threat match, Mysterio finally won the big one. But it became very obvious that in the eyes of Vince McMahon, Mysterio wasn't seen as a proper world champion. Non-title defeats to the giants Khali and Mark Henry pegged him as a paper champion, and a few months later he dropped the belt to the ridiculous King Booker. Number 9, Kurt Angle, WWE Champion 2001. Although the invasion between the then WWF and WCW and ECW turned out to be a busted flush and sent the wrestling business into a ratings and popularity slump, there were a few shining lights that came out of the storyline. One of which was the incredible face turn from Kurt Angle, who stepped up to take down the treacherous Stone Cold Steve Austin. Having played the dorky Olympic heel superbly since his arrival in the company, Angle's sudden heroic turn was massively popular with the audience, and moments such as the milk bath will forever live in their memories. After a white-hot feud led to a disappointing DQ finish at SummerSlam, Angle would dethrone Austin at Unforgiven, bringing the belt back to the WWE, where he was then given the old Lex Express treatment complete with confetti. A seismic moment in the invasion. Until 2 weeks later, where a defecting William Regal cost Angle the belt in a rematch with Austin, making it all pointless, and things got even stupider when Angle himself defected to the Alliance. Yeah, This may have sort of been smoothed out as Angle being a mole for Vince McMahon, and it immediately inserted him as a heel upon the Invasion's wet fart of an ending, but for those 2 months, Angle was white hot, and the WWE really dropped the ball with his title run. Speaking of white hot things from the Invasion, number 8, Rob Van Dam, WWE Champion 2006. Rob Van Dam. A man who was so effortlessly cool, he managed to unintentionally become the biggest babyface across 3 companies during the Invasion. This entry is about the phenomenal disappointment of when RVD finally ascended to the top, then threw it all away along with any hopes of fans clamouring for an ECW revival to actually not be bastardised by the big Vince machine. At ECW One Night Stand in 2005, RVD spent the night on the sidelines due to injury. 1 year later, and as the holder of the Money in the Bank briefcase, back when it was still super exciting and not fought over in a friggin' court case, RVD told WWE poster boy John Cena that he would be cashing in ahead of time. Very nice, very noble. At ECW One Night Stand 2006, RVD called his shot against Cena in front of a rabid Hammerstein ballroom. And when I say rabid, I mean it was actually terrifying watching the fans lay into John Cena with the very real threat of a riot breaking out if RVD didn't win. He did, and with ECW being revived on Sci-Fi and with Heyman at the helm, the fans were hopeful. Then it all went up in smoke. Ha 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 ha, a clever pun. You see, Rob Van Dam, who had also been gifted the ECW Championship, was busted by the police with a lot of weed and was jobbed out twice in 1 week, putting the Big Show, a man who had never been part of ECW's legacy as the champ, and the entire dream of a revived ECW was extinguished quicker than a Rob Van Dam joint. Number 7, Triple H, Undisputed Champion 2002. 2 of wrestling's biggest what-if moments are what was the payoff for the 2-man power trip and what role would Triple H have played during the Invasion angle, especially considering his wife was heading up ECW. Unfortunately, in May 2001, Triple H tore his quad in a barn burner of a tag team title match on Monday Night Raw, which, if you haven't seen, go and dig out immediately. Putting an abrupt end to the 2-man power trip, old HHH didn't return until January 2002. And what a return! Madison Square Garden shook the earth as they welcomed the game back into the fold, solidifying him as a major babyface despite Hunter always being such a natural heel. That momentum took him to his first Royal Rumble victory, setting up a title match with Chris Jericho for the undisputed belt. Unfortunately, that white-hot momentum fizzled when the storyline revolved around Triple H and Stephanie's marital problems before being completely dominated by the electric Hogan vs. Rock at WrestleMania 18. With a lame title win to bounce back from, Hunter Hearst Helmsley was the biggest victim of the nostalgic clamour for the red and yellow of Hulkamania, as 1 month later, in an awful match at Backlash, Triple H surrendered the belt to Hulk Hogan. By the summer, he had turned heel once more to begin his epic rivalry with a returning Shawn Michaels. Number 6, Big E, WWE Champion 2021. Now, if you can show me any wrestling fan that doesn't love Big E, then I will show you what a true liar looks like. One of the most beloved, likeable and entertaining men to step between the ropes in a long time, Big E has constantly been highlighted as a potential WWE champion for almost the entirety of his run. As the big, strong, gyrating fridge of the New Day, it was always felt that it was only a matter of time before the WWE gave in to the raw power of his charisma and pushed him to the top of the mountain. And that matter of time began in 2020 when Big E was separated from his New Day brethren and embarked on an above-average singles run, complete with mandatory IC title run and feud with mid-card mainstay Sheamus. Winning Money in the Bank in 2021, Big E teased Paul Heyman constantly about coming for reigns, and it felt like Big E was maybe being groomed as the guy to knock Roman from his seat at the table. Then, WWE announced on Twitter that Big E was going to Raw to cash in on Lashley. It was exciting, but felt a bit rushed, and the fact that Big E cashed in on a clearly injured Lashley, who valiantly tried to defend the belt, took the shine off of what should have been a euphoric night. A subsequent run-of-the-mill title reign followed, following the usual tropes of a champion suddenly losing every non-title match, and Big E never really felt like the main man. Big E got the Kofi treatment, dropping the belt to Brock Lesnar and being shunted back down the card. He was traded to SmackDown, stuffed back in the tag team ranks, and is now out, hopefully not forever, with a broken neck. Get well soon, Big E, you big, beautiful bastard. Number 5, Chris Benoit, World Heavyweight Champion, 2004. In the near 16 years that have passed since Chris Benoit's death, it can be difficult for many, myself included, to go back and watch some of his work with the reverence his ability deserved. Between the ropes, Benoit was phenomenal, but it always seemed he was set to be an upper mid-carder who could be relied upon to offer an exceptional challenge to a champion or bring credibility to a secondary belt. In the latter part of 2003, during a phenomenal few years for SmackDown, Benoit received a groundswell of support which carried him to winning the 2004 Royal Rumble from the number 1 spot. A hell of an achievement, and Benoit then moved to Raw, inserting himself in the Triple H HBK saga and winning the World Championship in possibly the greatest triple threat match of all time, making the once unbeatable Triple H tap clean in the middle of the ring. It looked like Benoit was a made man. However, despite running back the triple threat at Backlash, the rest of Benoit's run never registered as a main event concern. A nothing feud with a Masterless Kane led to a successful title defense at Bad Blood, remember that one, but unfortunately for the rabid Wolverine, he became a supporting character in the rivalry between Triple H and the problematic Eugene. Remember him? That was tasteful. Eventually, Benoit's title reign ended on a whimper, with a young Randy Orton being catapulted into a title shot at SummerSlam and pinning Benoit clean in the middle of the ring. It certainly had nothing to do with them trying to erase Brock Lesnar from the record books as the youngest ever champion. Honest. Number 4, Diesel, WWF Champion, 1995. Oof, this one was rough. Often regarded as one of the many cooks that ruined the WCW broth, Kevin Nash is undoubtedly one of the most famous and endearingly popular faces of the Monday Night Wars. Whilst he will be forever remembered as one of the founding members of the game-changing New World Order, it's easy to forget just how cataclysmic his and Scott Hall's defection in 1996 really was. Just 1 year earlier, Kevin Nash, then known as Diesel, had been reigning as the WWF Champion after a meteoric rise up the card due to his association and subsequent feud with HBK Shawn Michaels. Whilst his later years and tender quads would slow Nash down, in his prime he was an electric performer and his natural charisma always made him the coolest guy in any ring. When he pinned Bob Backlund in November 1994 in front of a sold-out Madison Square Garden, Diesel seemed primed to be the next major WWF superstar. A subsequent feud with Bret Hart and then former ally Shawn Michaels, who lost to Diesel at WrestleMania 11, got things off to a good start. The rest of Diesel's run occurred during one of the WWF's worst ever years. I mean, you could have put Bryan Danielson in the ring with King Mabel and it would have been a dud. Eventually, as what happens with most cool heels in Vince McMahon land, Diesel soon became a bland, smiling babyface, and he dropped the belt to Bret Hart after a lackluster 1-year title reign. 7 months later, he and Scott Hall changed the wrestling landscape. Number 3, Edge, WWE Champion, 2006. The Rated R Superstar is, without a shadow of a doubt, one of the greatest WWE superstars of all time. From his rise with good friend, not brother, Christian, through the tag ranks, he appeared in many of the most legendary tag battles the business has ever seen. The spear off the ladder at WrestleMania 17 will never not be terrifying. From there, he became one of the most decorated stars in history, including 12 tag title reigns, 2 Royal Rumbles, and 11 runs with the top belt. More significantly, Edge made history by winning the first ever Money in the Bank ladder match back at WrestleMania 21, back when it was a WrestleMania match and not its own sodding pay-per-view. Holding the briefcase for 9 months, Edge spiralled as a despicable heel, especially in light of his affair with Lita, who was still in a relationship with his good friend Matt Hardy. Seen as the lesser of the 2 stars, Hardy was harshly fired but then immediately brought back for a feud with Edge, which started white hot but fizzled quickly. Edge continued to ride the momentum until he created one of the most historic moments in wrestling history, the cash-in. Fresh off of overcoming the odds in an elimination chamber at New Year's Resolution 2006, John Cena was greeted by an eager Vince McMahon who announced the cash-in Edge hit the ring, took the belt, and finally made it to the top of the mountain. And not a mountain of omnipotence. No. The following Raw drew a remarkable rating, which probably had more to do with Edge promising to have a live sex celebration with Lita. Uber heel Edge as champion was refreshing, but the reason it's so high on this list is he lost it back to John Cena 3 weeks later at the Royal Rumble. What a waste! Still, if we're talking about Edge, it's probably worth mentioning his incredible 2020 return at the Rumble. My God, what a feeling. Number 2, Eddie Guerrero, WWE Champion, 2004. Oh, this is heartbreaking. Personally, Eddie Guerrero was my favourite wrestler when he returned to the WWE in 2002 after a brief period on the Indies. His reputation in WCW as one of the best cruiserweights around was well earned, but the WWE never treated him like a main player until the man basically forced them to. And how did he do that? By being just the bloody best! The lie, we cheat, we steal, was absolutely inspired, and splicing that with Eddie's unrivaled in-ring ability and oodles of charisma, the man became such an inevitability that the WWE had to bow down to the fan support that he had built. That moment, during the No Way Out 2004 main event, where Eddie Guerrero countered the F5 into a tornado DDT onto the belt, made this narrator actually scream. And the euphoria of him nailing the frog splash, picking up his first WWE Championship and diving into the crowd is one of the greatest moments in WWE history. The man had conquered so many personal demons to come back to the profession that was steeped in his family's history. And not only did he live up to the family name, he cemented it forever as one of the best to ever do it. Unfortunately, despite the brilliant feud and match with Kurt Angle at WrestleMania 20, Eddie's title reign didn't last long. Bradshaw's sudden transformation into JBL didn't make him a main eventer overnight. Why doesn't the WWE ever learn? But it helped expedite the dropping of Eddie's belt after Guerrero himself had been struggling under the demands of being champion. For such a tremendous moment to fizzle out was tragic, and when Eddie Guerrero passed away in late 2005, on the cusp of his second run and a mooted rivalry with Shawn Michaels, the wrestling world lost so much. Viva la razza, Eddie. To this day, you are still sorely missed. And number 1, Shawn Michaels, World Heavyweight Champion, 2002. The Heartbreak Kid Shawn Michaels has a legitimate claim to being the greatest wrestler of all time. From his catalogue of classic matches and memorable angles to being one of the most electric performers to ever grace the WWE. He more than deserves his title as Mr. WrestleMania, where his legacy includes his classic matches with The Undertaker, Kurt Angle, Chris Jericho and Ric Flair to name a few. His long-running feud and eventual retirement at the hands of The Undertaker is still one of the greatest in WWE history. But harken back to 1998 and HBK had to retire after a back injury sustained in a casket match with The Undertaker. After dropping the belt to Stone Cold Steve Austin at WrestleMania 14, HBK stepped away from the ring and sadly retired. In 2002, to try and breathe life into the NWO corpse, the WWE brought HBK back, but even his magic couldn't save the blundered reformation of the iconic group. A reunion with Triple H saw the game turn on his lifelong friend, and a subsequent non-sanctioned match for SummerSlam was booked. HBK tore the roof off the building as he and Triple H worked a stellar match, proving that there was one more run in the showstopper. Cashing in on the goodwill and popularity of Shawn's comeback, the WWE decided, much like they did when Hulkamania ran wild earlier in the year, to strike while the iron was hot. In the conclusion of the first ever Elimination Chamber, HBK nailed then champion Triple H with a sweet chin music to become World Heavyweight Champion for the first time in over 4 years. And despite the hideous brown tights and the soccer mum haircut, HBK was once again top of the mountain. But then he dropped it the following month back to Triple H in an average 3 stages of hell match. Reports say he still wasn't confident in his ability, and that self-belief only returned after his WrestleMania Classic with Chris Jericho a few months later. Whilst HBK's second run in the company was arguably his best, there's no denying that seeing him have a meaningful title reign would have only enhanced it, and that the only time he did claim the belt was over before it began. and certainly not the final title reign befitting a legend like HBK. And that's the list. If you think there are any title reigns we've missed, feel free to drop us a comment below and let us know about it. Remember to like, share and subscribe, and stick around for more wrestling content.